It's indeed an honor and a privilege for me to talk with you this Memorial Day. Thank you for coming. Thank you for showing your respect and honoring our war dead. This Memorial Day marks the 50th anniversary of the fall of South Vietnam. And this Memorial Day, I want to introduce you to some of the individual war dead that I have known and that we are here to honor. In other words, to some of the ghosts that haunt me. If my composure slips a little, please forgive me and know I'm okay. I was drafted 60 years ago this year. As I choose to remember it, I must have been about the age of 12 because I can't be as old as I am now. At the time, the military code of conduct said, "I am an American fighting man. I serve in the armed forces which guard my country and protect our way of life. I am prepared to give my life in their defense." I learned later, through bitter experience, a more accurate and honest version should have been, "I'm prepared to have my life brutally taken." My 10-year Vietnam-American War experience, of which 2 years were in active combat, much of it intense, has been of no lives gloriously given, but rather only of lives brutally taken. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial, the Wall, bears the names of over 24 soldiers I served in combat with, as well as my flight school roommate, Chuck Harrington. Hello, darkness, my old friend. It's good to talk with you again. Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping. And that vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. You may recognize those words by Simon and Garfunkel from the song Sound of Silence. It seems to me that Americans are clueless as to the costs of a war. We build monuments to dead soldiers, but no monuments to those who are wounded or disabled, be it physically or mentally. Like my platoon leader during my first tour, who was evacuated due to a psychological breakdown. Nor do we build monuments to the non-combatants who are killed or die in a war zone, nor monuments to those who work for peace with justice. Hello, darkness, my old friend. It's good to talk with you again. My second tour in 1972, I survived the siege at An Loc, which was part of a massive North Vietnamese invasion known as the Easter Offensive. The siege at An Loc was a 3-month, mid-intensity battle involving 3 North Vietnamese divisions, tanks, artillery, and anti-aircraft, including, for the first time in South Vietnam, surface-to-air missiles, which took all the fun out of flying helicopters. Most of the United States B-52 bomber inventory was involved at An Loc. At the time, we joked, "Aren't we lucky? We have B-52s flying close air support for our helicopter assaults." The anti-aircraft fire was some of the most intense of the war, and as our recovery if shot down was not assured, we were issued blood chits. In multiple languages it said, "Misfortune forces me to seek assistance," and that my government offered a reward for my safe return. We joked, but were half serious. We should turn each other in and see how much we are worth to our government. Or were we? And especially those of us killed, were we suckers and losers for being in this situation, as some would later infer? Because the vision softly creeping. BNR, body not recovered. Cobra gunship pilots Rob Williams and Rod Strobridge were shot down by a surface-to-air missile at Anlock, and their bodies never recovered. We lament Rob and Rod and the 1,571 other American soldiers still missing from the Vietnam-American War, but are clueless about the 300,000 Vietnamese from the same period who are missing. During the Vietnam-American War, over 3 million Vietnamese died. Millions more wounded and displaced, and after the war, tens of thousands more injured or killed due to unexploded ordnance, and chemical contamination from defoliants spread over 50% of South Vietnam. As we look at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, with its over 58,000 American soldier deaths, do we also comprehend that American soldier deaths might not be the only ones worthy of being counted and memorialized? Left its seeds while I was sleeping. On the wall's last panel, there are a dozen Cobra gunship pilots killed while covering our combat assaults at Anlock. They are among the last Americans to be killed in Vietnam. And I can tell you, they weren't giving their last full measure. They had it brutally taken. Just as we took the lives of our enemy and a lot of civilians. Nothing exemplifies our ignorance of a combat zone more than folks arguing women shouldn't serve in combat roles. I say neither should men. But if men must, so must women. The irony is, women are always involved, if not as soldiers, then as civilians. The best place to be in a combat zone is in uniform, with a job, a supporting infrastructure providing safe drinking water, food, and medical care. As civilians in a combat zone, women, children, and the infirm are a low priority. And by many orders of magnitude, they by far comprise the most casualties of war. We just don't count them. And that vision that was planted in my brain still remains. I returned home among some of the last remaining American combat troops. I was bitter, confused, and angry. Why do humans kill each other? And then I became familiar with the Pentagon Papers. Was the Vietnam-American War a just war? Was it all worth it? How would Chuck Harrington, Gordon Skinner, Rob Williams, Lou Brewer IV, or any of the others answer this from their places on the wall? Lou Brewer IV. Did you catch that, the fourth? Lou and I attended Cobra School together before deploying to Vietnam in late '71, and we became pretty good friends. Together, we periodically closed the Officers Club singing, "We Gotta Get Out of This Place" by the Animals. Coincidentally, Lou's nickname was Animal. At Anlock, Lou's Cobra was shot down, killing him and his co-pilot. The South Vietnamese fought for hours to retrieve their bodies. I flew a single ship mission to recover them. About a year later, I visited Lou's parents in Dallas. It was a disaster. Lou was their only son. There would be no Louis Carl Brewer V, let alone having their family name carried on. There was no mistaking their answer to "was it worth it?" I'm greatly affected by the memories, the ghosts of the dead I have known, the wounds, the destruction, the agony and pain, the anguish, the depression, and dark places one can sometimes find yourself. May the loss of all these lives be not in vain. May we honor their struggle this Memorial Day by working much harder for just peace and for a better understanding of what constitutes a just war. May we as a nation work mightily for peace and justice. May we as a community struggle harder to ensure tolerance and mutual respect. And starting today, this Memorial Day, may we as individuals redouble our efforts to bring these things about, so fewer soldiers have their last full measure brutally and viciously taken. Within the sound of silence, let's take a quiet moment to honor these war dead, as well as others of our war dead. Let's get to work. Thank you.